What is up, everyone? This is the Barking Browns. That's Nick Carnes. I'm Casey Kenneman. Jacob Roach is still missing in action. No one has seen him. If I had to place a wager, I'd say he's in some dark room scouring over draft prospects for the 2029 NFL draft. The man has a problem. We might have to stage an intervention. No news if Tits McGee or Veronica Corningstone is going to be coming in with us tonight, but I'm Ron Burgundy. Might be joining us at 8:30, so stay tuned for that. But Nick, we did it. We got through the NFL draft. It was wild time. It was a weird draft if you're a Browns fan, and so let's just jump right into it and just start from the beginning. So where was your mentality when you hear that the Browns have traded back, and just walk me through that process for you?
Well, I heard that there were rumors that this could potentially happen. Like everybody was talking about, like there's a deal looming, and we had talked about how the draft really started at 2, with the assumption that Tennessee was taking Cam Ward. So I had thought it could certainly be with the Browns, and we got to that pick, and I was off social media. I was just I like to actually just see it happen. There's some people that you don't want the spoilers, want the info as soon as possible. I was just watching on TV. So the screen flashes like trade, and the Browns had traded down, but they took forever to announce what the compensation was. And there's always going to be a part of me that's going to watch Travis Hunter and think about how he could be a Brown. And that's tough, man. Like we talked about the Julio Jones trade, and I know that's been a hot topic, a conversation since, and like that's tough. But as soon as they showed what the Browns got, right, where you pick up another pick in the second round, you get there first next year, you move down 3 spots, and I think they swapped fourths. I thought about that for a second, and I was just like, you got all of this to move down 3 spots. And so my immediate reaction and what I sent out there was that the Browns won the trade, not knowing who the Browns were going to take at that point. It's just purely from a value perspective. I don't think you can pass it up, man. Not to move down 3 spots. If you're like the Julio Jones stuff where they move back down to significantly down in the first round, like that's a hefty price. But in this case, it's like, we had talked about Mason Graham, and we had talked about like how the top 5 of the draft are all guys that you want. Like if the Patriots had passed on the offensive tackle, like that would have been great. So there were a lot of directions the Browns can go in because they have a lot of holes. And so I just think you can't pass up the value that the Jaguars gave you, especially knowing that they're a shaky organization themselves. The Browns still at that point don't have a quarterback. I mean, they still may not, but it just gives you so much flexibility. So to me, the Browns win that trade even before I know who they take.
Yeah, it was. I was doing the OBR draft, the draft cave, and like earlier in the day for me, it became the Post-it note thing, and it was Travis Hunter no matter what. That's where I got my brain to. But the closer it got, it was still Travis Hunter, but I scratched out the no matter what. I'll listen to offers.
Okay.
And that's where my brain was the entire time, is if no matter what the trade package is, if it doesn't involve a first next year, I can't do it. And for a non-quarterback, it's rare that someone gives you a first next year. Like that's just something you don't really see unless it's a quarterback, and then that's kind of customary. But I was still kind of bummed because I really had set my mind, my sights were on Travis Hunter, and I'm the same as you. Like no matter what happens with this draft, there's always going to be a part of it that's linked to however successful he is. Mm-hmm. And if he is truly generational, this will always hurt because you could have had the guy. But you can't live in the world of woulda, coulda, shoulda. You have what you had in front of you, and we know why they took the extra first for next year. It gives them flexibility in case they need to maneuver and get one of these quarterbacks. It's expected to be a better crop of quarterbacks. So they drop back 3 spots. They get Mason Graham. It's a meat and potatoes pick, and it's not. I get it's not sexy. It's not sizzle. It's not. It's not a skill position. So I get a lack of enthusiasm, but at the end of the day, you needed someone that could stop the run. And now you have someone to pair with Michael Hall, and you have a dynamic set of defensive tackles on the interior to pair with what you got on the outside with Myles Garrett and the cast characters on the other side, McGuire and Wright, who was just actually cleared for football activities. That's always a good thing. So where you at with Mason Graham?
I'm really excited about it because outside of Michael Hall, it's been and Michael Hall's just shown us flashes,
Mhm.
but Andrew Berry has had to really go out and get the veteran defensive tackle because we just haven't been able to develop like that position specifically in his time here. And so it always just seems like, and like Dalvin Tomlinson was I really liked him for the
He was
Browns.
fun.
Right. He definitely was, but it's like it comes at a high price contract because that's a position. If you're not drafting it well, then you're going to pay up to get a guy who can be a difference maker. And so I really like adding youth to that line. I really like getting a blue chip prospect there, and like just the compliment between he and Michael Hall. Where Hall is a dynamic pressure creator, and especially with the Browns. Just inability to stop the run at times, and like knowing that's Mason Graham's strength is so exciting to me. They've needed, the real Myles Garrett has always been out there generating pressure, but like I just like think about the Taven Bryans of the world where I think he had the second most sacks one year for the Browns. Man, like it's just like they've always needed to put this talent around Myles and have not been able to really get it together. And I just look at these other teams, I mean, especially the Philadelphia Eagles and what their defensive line was able to do to Patrick Mahomes. And the only other time I saw Patrick Mahomes really look like that was when Tampa Bay was able to get to him in the Super Bowl as well. And it's like you see these defensive lines and this dominant play, and like that it really can matter. Even when everybody says offense wins in the NFL and offense is the main focus, it's like you see the teams that really have dominant defensive lines that can still tip the scales in their favor. And so I like it, man. I like Mason Graham. I think, if you're looking at it and you're saying this guy's coming in, he's got the wrestling background. He understands leverage. He's just a guy that can be dominant for you in the middle there. That's exciting to me. It may not be, like you said, sexy, but I've just seen too many teams that have these dominant defensive lines that just end up winning, that just create advantages for themselves. And I want that in Cleveland. We've wanted it for a long time and just haven't been able to get the young defensive tackle right. And so now you're thinking about, it's like you still added Malik Collins, but it's like you have this youth movement of high defensive line picks. And that's very exciting to me.
Yeah, the way I look at it, it's not sexy, but very impactful. A very impactful rookie to be selected in that area. But it kind of something you touched on a second ago is therefore why AB was picking third, fourth round defensive tackles, and they were trying to develop them, and they could never get over that hump. And you saw them last year allocate a second round pick to a defensive tackle, and this year a first. So it's a change in philosophy. But this was a very non-AB draft. If you just think of the first three positions picked, the positional value is not where it normally is for Cleveland. They went defensive tackle, linebacker, running back, like right off the rip. So very non-traditional in that sense. So let's go ahead and jump to the second round. Overnight, you had overnight to think about it. So the first round ends and you know all those names on the board. And they come out at 33 and pick Carson Schlesinger. Walk me through your reaction to that.
I know he's a favorite of yours. I'm not gonna tell you that I knew a whole lot about Schlesinger.
We didn't talk about him. I thought there was no chance in hell we would get him. So I loved his tape, but I had to leave it alone because no way AB drafts a linebacker that early. So
right. Well, so I start doing research to find out what do I need to know about this guy. And the initial thing that I see is he leads college football in solo tackles, and then you pop on the film of him. And you just see this guy that is a sure tackler. He's great side to side. He looks like he can cover. It's just like it's flashbacks to JOK, and I just look at it and it's I understand the positional value argument. I get it. But again, linebacker is another position where basically aside from JOK, they just have been signing veterans, right? Whether it was Anthony Walker or it's Jordan Hicks, the guys before him, it's like typically these short contracts and guys that aren't there for long. And I really am looking to build longevity on the Browns. Like you want these guys to be here for a long time. And so it's like when you draft a dynamic linebacker that's young, and I don't know what the health situation is with JOK, but just even the prospect of pairing those two guys together and having them in the middle, both young, like JOK is still not old. So I like it, man. I like it. I get the positional value argument. We're talking, just pulling the curtain back a little bit. We were talking earlier. It's like the Browns are in a position with guys like Greg Newsome and maybe Opo Okoronkwo and a couple other positions where it's like you have guys that are going to contribute for you, but maybe aren't going to be here in the long term. So it makes more sense to me to address these other needs you have. And when value falls to you, because like you said, Casey, you didn't even see it as a possibility.
No.
I think you got to scoop it up.
So I was a year early. Remember last year I wanted Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker that ended up going to Green Bay. That was my guy going into last year. So I didn't fall in love with the linebacker for that very reason. But Schlesinger it's a very curious career for him at UCLA. He's a career special teams player. And then Adofi, they moved their other linebacker into play edge, and then they opened up a space for Schlesinger, and he just was so dynamic in his movements just to evade blockers and take crazy angles to make tackles, showed crazy instincts. He's got tremendous flow, and he takes his helmet off. You can see that hair just going everywhere. Like he's definitely he looked like a California linebacker. But the one thing I worry about with him, he kind of gets washed out in running plays sometimes. If a guy can climb to the second level and get on him, but when you draft a Mason Graham in front of him, that probably keeps him a little clean right there and allows him to use those movement skills. And you start thinking about if JOK is able to return, pairing those two together, because he's a Mike Becker, JOK is a Will. And you start thinking about your two linebacker sets and what you guys can really cause problems. But when I think about the players that were on the board, because overnight I wasn't thinking Carson Schlesinger. I'm thinking Luther Burden's on the board. Jaden Higgins is on the board. Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, the offensive tackle, is on the board. And you start thinking about those things, and that's where my brain was. So I got caught with one foot off the merry-go-round when they called Carson Schlesinger's name. I was like, did they get that right? Did they really just do that? So kind of caught me off guard. And before you know it, you're up again, though, because you went, 33, 36, you're on the board again. Quinshon Judkins, boom. For me, that was a home run. That was a player. I'm 1,000,000% in on this. We know what the Browns running game has lacked these last couple of years. And when we talked about, me and you've talked about it, that we need that physicality. You need that hammer.
Right.
You need that physical, run it. They know run it. The stadium knows run it. You can't stop it. We're coming at you. So to pick him up, man, I was elated. So kind of bring me up to speed with how you thought about the Judkins selection.
There's been a lot of discussion. Judkins, Travion Henderson, like you knew those two guys were going to kind of go hand in hand somewhere in there. And to me, I just felt like Judkins has the more physical build. He's heavier, he's a little taller. He has the more physical build to take the punishment. He could be like a 20 carry guy if you wanted him to be. I'm not sure that that's what Travion Henderson ends up being in the NFL. He certainly could be, but I just feel like Judkins is built more to be the workhorse type back. And the Browns just haven't had that since Nick Chubb went down in Pittsburgh, man. And they desperately need it. It's like Jerome Ford does some nice things, but he's not a guy that's going to grind in between the tackles. And since Nick Chubb hasn't been there, like they've tried to, put a Band-Aid on it and add free agent running backs, and it just hasn't been successful. And it's like that is the foundation of Kevin Stefanski's offense. And I just feel like as we switch back to Kevin running the show and his bread and butter, and what made the engine go was Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and that duo was the foundation for everything else the Browns did and helped make them so successful. And so Quinshon Judkins to me is a great pick there. Value be damned. You need a running back that is going to be reliable, consistent, there for you, and he's a dynamic player in his own right. You've seen the stiff arms, the breaking tackles, all of that stuff, and it fills such a tremendous need the Browns had, and really to me helps stabilize the offense because honestly for the last 2 years it's just been throwing the ball 50 times a game, whether it was Flacco or Winston or Dorian not throwing it at all. Right? You're never going to live that way. You're never going to live that way offensively. So you have to get back to what you do well, and that's why I was so excited about the Judkins pick.
Yeah, the him and versus Travion discussions. I mean, I get it because Travion's a more complete back, and you don't have to take him off the field. But to your point, he's not going to be a guy who racks up 250 carries over a season. He's going to play more in spots. Judkins is a hammer, dude, and 6'1", 221. Running the 4.4s like he is. His vertical jump, his standing broad, everything just screams explosive athlete, and that's what we've lacked since Chubb's been out with his injury.
Right.
So let's just go ahead and fast forward. So they stay skill player in a much needed area if their next pick is 67, 67. They take Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. For me, I had buckets. Obviously, the first two were Warren and Loveland. Almost some of those Schlesinger, I didn't even really. I watched their tape and was like, "That's dope. We're not touching them. We're not picking that high." So then my next bucket was Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, and Harold Fannin. And they're all three a little different from each other, but that was my next three tight ends. But out of those three, Harold Fannin gets me the most excited because of all the possibilities he opens up for an offense because of his flexibility, positionally, where you can motion him out of the backfield, play him as a big slot, and kind of use him to be your indicator to create mismatches in 12 personnel. So I was super pumped. And the one thing we don't like, what have we talked about with David Njoku? He was 20 years old when he was drafted. So he's still young now, and we're going into year 9, right. And it's like, man, he's been here forever, but he's still so young. Harold Fannin's a week younger than Njoku was when Njoku was drafted. He's only 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until July. So, there's a lot of things that he still needs to develop. And we're, especially as a rookie, probably the first 2 years, we're not going to ask this kid to do a ton of blocking on the end line. May see some fullback action out of him, stuff like that. But I'm extremely pumped about this pick. And a lot of it, he's from where this is from state of Ohio. He hasn't left the state. We're keeping this one in state. But I'm just so excited for what this can do for Stefanski and Reese as far as like opening up their playbook to different possibilities and giving Njoku another athlete to pair with him in those 12 personnel situations. And it just makes me the happiest because the one thing I wanted was to lean into Kevin's thing, what Kevin does. For me, this does that. How excited were you to hear that name called?
Anytime you can keep a Canton McKinley product home is exciting. Love that. And especially, being a Bowling Green Falcon. I just look at it and I say, this guy had 50% of the Bowling Green's passing yards last season, and was their whole offense and was the key for defenses, and they still couldn't stop him. He's a dynamic yak threat. He's got great hands. He's certainly a good athlete. He's not the same as David Njoku, but like in the aspect that like he's just a physical freak. It kind of reminds you of him a little bit. And we've been talking on this show for a long time about how they just need to get somebody in that tight end room that can develop and stay here and be here for a long time. I feel like what better time to get Fannin than when you have Njoku in his prime and he's here. It makes a ton of sense. It's exciting. I don't know. Rookie tight ends are weird.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you get Brock Bowers or even Kyle Pitts in year 1, right? Not so much since.
Yeah, but Sam Laporta.
Right.
The last few years, we've had at least one breakout.
Yeah, right. And so you can get that. I'm not sure with David Njoku here that you're going to get that, but it's the perfect situation to allow a guy like him with all these tools and with the physical ability to develop. So I was really excited about the pick. I think it makes a ton of sense, and they've needed a second tight end for a long time. So Fannin, I was pumped.
Let's move on to what I consider the biggest head scratcher of this draft. And as this isn't anything against the player, it's just for me, drafting Dylan Gabriel at 94 was caught me way off guard. I was my brain was completely like looking at Xavier Woods and looking at safeties and just looking at that board and to hear his name called, it was like a bucket of cold water in my face. I was just shocked, the direction they went. My first indication is if they pick Dylan Gabriel at 94, this is Kev's guy. This is the guy that he wanted to go with, and it's hard for me to be mad at it. In the moment, I was like, man, I think he'd be there at 126. I think he would still been on the board. So I think they jumped the gun, but they obviously felt like they had to have him, or you don't pick him there.
Right.
And for years we've been like, oh, just let Kevin pick his own guy. Just let's just see what it looks like. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's what this is. But I think it's underwhelming for most fans because he wasn't a quarterback on people's radars. Not everybody. If we ever see Jacob Roach again, he'll tell us about it. We'll wait to see if he makes a guest appearance sometime. But it was just caught me off, I didn't see it coming, and those are always shocking because we spent all this time talking about Jalen Milroe, talking about Shedeur, talking about Jackson Dart, all the quarterbacks we thought was going to be in their range in the second roundish if they want to do that. So to hear Gabriel's name called was really a shock to the system. But I get the attributes that you like, but it's always worrisome when someone's an outlier, and he's an outlier just because of his size.
I just, I was upset about the pick. And it really it wasn't as much about Dylan Gabriel as it was that Shedeur was still there. And I just think from a talent perspective, I understand there's a lot more to it, but I think from a talent perspective, I think Shedeur is the more intriguing prospect. And it just seems strange. Like there was an audible gasp on the coverage crew from ESPN. And it was just one of those picks. Like the Browns always seem to have one of those picks, man, where like they take a guy and the analysts look around and they say, what, why? And it's always one. And this was that one that really was a head scratcher. And I get it. I want to give Stefanski the benefit of the doubt. It's a fellow lefty. Love that. But it was strange. Like it was a strange pick to me. And nobody, except really on Twitter, shout out to Cardiac Kid Sean, had that the Browns were in Eugene and visiting Gabriel. Like nobody really had him on the radar. It was just like one of those out of left field picks. Now I've seen some things that in like adjusted completion percentage and that type of thing. It's like Gabriel and Shedeur were 1 and 2, and I know we'll get to Shedeur, but it's a very Stefanski pick to me. They could not broadcast any more clearly that they do not want quarterbacks that are going to turn the ball over. So I'm just going to keep an open mind to it. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to try to put my faith in this, and may the best quarterback win this inevitable competition. For
me, just the fact that knowing Stefanski, that's the direction you wanted to go, it's enough for me to be like, okay, but you got to show me. You know, like that's what it comes down to. I'll say this: like at the Senior Bowl, I was very impressed by him. In something the misconception I've kind of seen is because he's a smaller quarterback. Kid's got a hose. My boy can throw. He can affect all levels of the field. It comes out quick. Because it's a lefty, it kind of looks a little different. It comes off his hand than you're used to seeing. But he can spin it, and he's a tremendous leader. When we talk about experience, I mean 63 college starts, the most touchdowns in college football history. You know what I mean? Like very highly productive. But it was just because it was a shock of a pick, it took me a while to acclimate myself to like what could be. But you're always going to be worried when someone's sub 6 foot, 205 pounds. Those are always worrying. Betting on outliers a lot is not a good way to go. He's the one so far, 5'11", 205. But he can operate a system and he can be a point guard. And that's something that Jacob Roach brought to me very early in the process because that was one of Jacob's guys from pillar to post. I remember when he first got into the quarterbacks, he was like, Dylan Gabriel could run Stefanski's offense. He said that to me months and months and months ago. And then throughout the whole process, when Jacob put out his My Guys, that was the quarterback that was on it. It was Dylan Gabriel. So he stuck with it through the whole thing. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like when they finally get into camp. But so that was the end of night 2, and it put a weird spin on the end of night 2.
Right.
It's like because I was so pumped through the Judkins to Fannin picks, like I was like, whoa, like they're doing this thing, and then they do that and kind of took a little momentum away for me. So the next day starts, and the Browns don't pick till 166, and then they trade up 50 picks later from Dylan Gabriel. They select Shedeur Sanders.
Well, you're
Now,
forgetting one.
Oh,
You're
yeah, I
forgetting.
am. I just jumped the whole thing. 126. MC's probably about to have a stroke. No, no, skip to Tennessee boy. They picked Dylan Sampson. This is something that's very interesting to me. So the first time I got to jump on a conference call with Daniel Jeremiah this year before the combine, I was like, hey, there's a tremendous running back class. Can you give me some running backs that would fit the wide zone system? He listed off 5 backs. 2 of those 5 were Judkins and Sampson. So he called that back before the combine. I'm sorry, MC. I know it's 50-50. You might have fell asleep in between comments and missed it, but my bad. I mean to skip Dylan Sampson because he's going to be a tremendous part of this offense. Exciting 1-2 punch. He's a home run hitter. He's a little smaller, about 205. A lot of Ohio State fans have a bad connotation because he was injured that game and then wasn't able to battle through. So they write him off immediately because he didn't, play well in that one game. Trust me when I say this kid can stretch it out, stick a foot in the ground, and be gone, ghost. I was surprised when he ran his 40 at the combine and he ran in the 4.4s. I thought he was going to be a 4.3 guy based on what I saw on the tape. I mean, he has a different gear when he hits the open field. So I was very pleased by that pick. What do you think of the new 1-2 punch?
I love it. I think, okay, you get the SEC's Offensive Player of the Year as your second complimentary back. I looked it up today, and Sampson and Judkins combined for 38 touchdowns last year, 22 of those coming from Sampson. And it just makes so much sense in terms of combining skill sets in the room. And not only that, but I just think you bring in 2 rookies. So you look at the running back room now, and you're saying if you're hitting on Sampson and Judkins, which I feel at least fairly confident that both of those guys are going to be contributors for the Browns for a significant period of time. But regardless of that, if so, you've got 2 running backs on rookie deals, right? And I understand like the analytics piece of it, and they're saying, what are the Browns doing? They're drafting 2 running backs, but it's like running back is this position where paying guys and their potential fall off and that stuff is scary. So what better way to hedge against that than to get 2 guys on rookie deals that are both dynamic in their own right and just look to play so well off of each other, right? Because like the thing about Travion is that he's definitely a better receiving back and more of that home run threat, and I understand that. But I think in Kevin Stefanski's offense, you need a workhorse back, and you also need somebody else that's going to change the pace and allow you to do different things. And it's like the duo of Sampson and Judkins just feels so like such a perfect fit. It's a glove, and those 2 guys are going to be such a fun duo. And really, I think the greatest value is that they're going to be the foundation. Like I think of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and just like the foundation that they were for the offense. And you look at Judkins and Sampson, and I'm not going to put the cart before the horse to take a quote from us talking earlier. But all I'm saying is you see the vision. You see the vision of going back to Kevin Stefanski's offense. You see a plan, and it just makes so much sense. And I'll tell you what, you won't find a bigger Dylan Sampson fan than I'm Ron Burgundy.
What's up?
Hello.
Well, you just missed our Dylan Gabriel conversation, so I'd be remiss if I didn't allow you to expand and you give us some of your thoughts on what was one of your guys throughout this entire draft process.
It was funny because he narrowly narrowly made it. I considered not putting him on there, but I did my guys list like 2 weeks before the draft actually took place and Dylan Gabriel was 10th on that list, just like, like this is a guy that like maybe you don't love him, but I do. So and I said this when the pick happened, kind of like on the OBR, I jumped on the stream and I said, like, this is a guy that maybe when you look at him, especially if you look at his stature, you're going to be like, NFL quarterback, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know this. He's 5'10", he's 5'11". Depends on where you go. Depends on who you ask. Yeah. I've seen the 5'10" measurement at the Senior Bowl, and then he had like a 5'11" measurement at the Combine or something of that nature, whatever. Like 200, and I think he's weight-wise bigger than Shedeur Sanders, if we're being completely honest, because I think Shedeur is sub 200, and I think Dylan Gabriel's like 210. But still lean. I get those things. He's a true extension of the play caller on the field, especially given in the right scheme. Especially like I think he fits what Kevin wants to do. He's smart. He's risk adverse. He can throw on the run. He can win with his legs if you want him to. Me and you have talked about this, Casey. He's got a stronger arm than Shedeur Sanders has. Like it's not great. It's not Cam Ward's. It's not a howitzer. But yeah. You described it as a hose, and I think that's probably a pretty good one. Somewhere there in the he's probably somewhere in the middle, in between those two things. And it's just, he's a point guard. Like, I'm not looking at Dylan Gabriel and being like, all right, we can have the worst wide receiver room in football. Like, I'm not looking at him like Josh Allen has elevated some very mid wide receivers in his day, including getting Gabe Davis paid. Paid. And I'm not looking at Dylan to do any of those sorts of things, but he's going to be. You talked about, like, can we get a Bo Nix? Can we do this? That's what Dylan Gabriel is. He has played more football than Bo Nix did in college. 63 collegiate starts. So what he sees, the defense, how he reads, you're not going to throw many things at him that he hasn't seen. He's won 10 games, thrown 30 touchdowns for 3 different programs. I think the accuracy, the ball placement isn't quite as good as Shedeur's, but I do think he's pretty accurate. I think he can fit it in some windows. He makes some throws every once in a while. He'll throw it up a little bit, a little Cam Ward style, which is funny because he's got I think it was like a 1.6% turnover worthy play rate. It's like very, very low, but every once in a while he will give you one
Roll
of those.
The dice.
Oh yeah, and he'll throw it vertically, man. Like he'll push it down the field. He doesn't have any kind of problem doing that. But his biggest thing is he's a good anticipatory thrower. He's on time. That's what's really going to get it for Kevin. That's what I think really does it for Kevin Stefanski. He wants you to throw to where you know the guy's going to be, not to where he's at. Dylan doesn't need to see it open. That was the issue with Deshaun Watson. He needs to see his guy open, not Dylan Gabriel. He's gonna study the game. He's gonna understand where the ball needs to go, when it needs to be there. He'll get in lockstep with his play caller. And he's just a point guard. He gets the ball out of his hands and lets his playmaker do their job.
I think it's so important to note that this is the first time in a very long time that the quarterbacks in the room have matching skill sets, right? Because even when you trade for Deshaun, you got Jacoby Brissett for the beginning of that year. That doesn't work. And then you go from Deshaun to Joe Flacco, right? Obviously different. And the last one, it was Deshaun and then Jameis, right? It's like none of those things match up. And it just feels like Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, you're all you're going to get a similar type of game plan for all of them, I think. And that feels a lot better to me than it has in the quarterback room for a long time, because they obviously need one offensive plan. It's hampered them for a long time, in my opinion, and I think we're going to get back to one cohesive plan.
Mm-hmm. And the 2 running back they selected will have a big part of that.
Oh,
just staying on schedule and keeping these guys in advantageous downs and distances, so it's not predictable, and so the play action is even more effective. So yeah, I think that let's before we go to the last pick of the draft, which I think will probably be the one we talk about the most. Jacob, for you, this is a very atypical. So we've had 5 AB drafts leading into this, so we have
Yeah.
an expectation, with this
Yeah, it did.
way you go. So this is a very non-atypical AB draft, going meat and potato type positions up front, doubling up on the quarterbacks, not picking a cornerback. Like to me, like that was like
That dawned on me today. No joke, I hadn't thought about that, but I was looking at some 2026 stuff, and I was looking at the corners, and I was like, wait a fucking minute.
it takes my sentence, life, death, taxes, and AB picking a cornerback. It's no longer true, kind of bucked the expectations there. So what surprised you the most about his draft strategy this year?
I was like really blown away by the Swishinger. Why can't I Carson Swishinger?
I said it earlier. We got to come up with a nickname for my boy. We got to figure this one out.
Why did I say Swishinger like I don't know it's Schlesinger? Okay. Anyway, I've seen a lot of people
read anything on the screen.
Don't put it on there. Don't put that question mark on there. And I think Schlesinger at 33 probably surprised me the most, and not taking a wide receiver even more so, because like he's been taking a lot of cracks at wide receiver as well. But like linebacker, the only time they took a linebacker with anything close to a premium pick, it was JOK, but that was because he was a universally believed to be first round talent that fell for a multitude of reasons, and he still got picked in the 50s. That's still nearly 20 picks later than what they took Schlesinger this year. And I'm a big Carson Schlesinger guy, not quite as big as you are, but like big fan of his. But I was really surprised that linebacker. And I think that kind of set the tone, didn't it? Because we kept saying, man, I'd love one of the highest state guys in the running back room, but they're not going to take running back that high. Like Henderson and Judkins are going to go off the board before they're willing to spend the assets. And then they went linebacker, running back, and then they did double down on running back. And I was like, okay, all right. Like, this is different. Like, the biggest surprise to me was linebacker and running back in the second round, probably. But, yeah, just because – and I don't have a problem with it. I love both of those players. But boy, was it a roller coaster compared to what I think we thought we were going to see. Like, it was all over the place, dude.
Yeah, if anybody out there has a time-stamped mock draft from beforehand with this going down, I have yet to see it.
So we did the charity fundraiser, right? And I haven't had time yet to figure out who the winner is. But it was a first round mock, not a Browns mock. But that first round itself was a wild ride, all over the place. So like, I'm very interested to go back and look at those things.
All right, well, let's fast forward here. So we've already covered all the prospects for you got on, except for this final one. And I'm going to let Nick take it. This was a passion project from Nick from day one. This was a guy that he was stumping for, and it had its peaks and valleys. It was like that first looked like it was definitely in contention to be a Brown, and then it kind of went away when the Abdul Carter and then Travis Hunter, and then if you love something, you let it go, and if it comes back to you, it loves you. You know what I mean? So Nick, walk me through pick 144.
Man, I'll tell you what, I left day 2 with such a sour taste because, like I said, I don't dislike Dylan Gabriel. I just think Shedeur Sanders is a better prospect. And so when they passed on him, I didn't understand. I didn't understand that the NFL was collectively just not going to take this guy for so long. And so when they take him, all of a sudden, it's like we've talked so many times before about like the lottery tickets that Andrew Berry has. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, right? Devin Bush has been a nice one. Malik McDowell was nice for a year. There's guys that he's hit on. And I just feel like when you get to the 5th round, and even after you've selected Dylan Gabriel, Okay, I've been watching the draft for a long time. I have never seen a quarterback without any type of baggage, of like law type
Mhm.
baggage that analysts universally agree on is talented fall like that.
Mhm.
Normally, no matter what happens, the need for quarterback pushes these guys up, and they get over. Maybe they get overdrafted, like even Kenny Pickett. But regardless, there's universal agreement. We've talked on this show, right? Even if you're saying, well, I don't see Shedeur Sanders in the first round. Like most people were at minimum projecting him to go in the second round. He was like
Mhm.
minus 1,000 to go in the first round
Yeah.
on multiple books. I'm a bit of a degenerate, but that's neither here nor there. So the general consensus is that this guy is either going to go in the first or the second round. And so when you get to the fifth round and you take him, I'm just looking at this and I'm saying this is the dream scenario in my book, because as a fifth round pick, your risk is little to none. You're paying him basically nothing, and he's a fifth round pick. So it's like if you get any type of trouble, or you're not getting the commitment or the buy-in or whatever,
Mhm.
you there's nothing to lose. You cut him, you can move on. That's it. But just the upside of that Shedeur Sanders presents in the fifth round is just not something you ever see, especially at quarterback, that teams can get their hand on. And so I just look at it, and Jacob, we were talking about this before. The adjusted completion percentage, it's like Dylan Gabriel's one, Shedeur Sanders is two. They both have been good with the turnover worthy, preventing the turnover worthy plays. Shedeur was specifically good under pressure. I just think he fits so much of what he's a pocket passer. And we had debates on the show where, like, if Shedeur Sanders' ceiling is Jared Goff, is that worth thinking? Jared Goff went number 1 overall. Shedeur Sanders went number 144 overall. And I get it. Shadeur's got a ton to do if he even wants to be in the same breath as Jared Goff. But the potential that you could get that level of quarterback at 144
Mhm.
is has me. I bought 2 Browns hats. I've been wearing Browns gear every day. It's so exciting. The upside of the move is just because you genuinely could have a franchise quarterback there. That is a real chance, and getting that guy in the fifth round is as good. Like for all the value you threw out the window with Deshaun Watson and that trade, you could have equally gained that value if you hit on this Shedeur Sanders pick. And I just think the right circumstances happened, right? Because, there's a lot of bravado, and there's a lot of, and God, I've been followed by more Colorado people than I've ever seen. It's like Baker Mayfield all over again. This guy
Yeah,
has like
it
a,
is.
a,
Yeah,
a fan base that I wasn't even aware of, right? And I'm
yeah.
interacting with Colorado.
I
He just
stumbled
comes with
across some of them today. Yeah,
Right. But he's a fifth round pick. It's so different now. It's so different because the power dynamic is not like Johnny Manziel, like your investment in Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield, you pick him number 1 overall. It's just different. I feel like the team is in full control of this situation. And so it's a quarterback that has upside, that analysts do agree is talented, that you got to pick in the fifth round. And I just don't see what you can lose. I don't see what you can lose. There's only to gain. And that is so. I never in my wildest dreams thought that they could get Shedeur Sanders in the fifth round. And when you're talking about all this talent that the Browns acquired before him, the potential to turn around your team in a very short time is there. And that is just I'm full of hope and hype and excitement. And I can't that first clip, I can't wait till rookie minicamp.
Jacob,
May
I'll let you
10th.
go next. See,
May
no
10th.
run out of time.
Yeah. So, like, I talked about it when it happened. I was really confused by the process. I think we've said this ad nauseum at this point, that the process just felt weird. It was a roller coaster. We were all over the spot, and it feels like. So I listened to NFL Stock Exchange, and Trevor Sikkema gave us a C plus, and Connor Rogers gave a B, which is what I had. I had given the D, or given the Browns I had given them the D, which is what I had given the Browns was a B, and And it's because the process was kind of confusing. You overdrafted Dylan Gabriel, but then you got Shedeur at a spot. Like I had him 23rd. I had a second round grade on him, but I had him at a 23rd overall on the board. And it's like for all of the concerns that I had off of the football field, they're not that big when he's a 5th round pick because he can think all he wants and his dad can think all he wants and all that bravado and they can whatever they want. You're the 144th pick and everybody just told you what they thought about your attitude in your interview process because everything I've gotten back is that's what it was. It was the interview process where it was like, is the lemon worth the squeeze? It was like the personality. And not that he's not a hard worker. Everyone knows he's a hard worker. Like, don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. Like, he's not lazy. That's not part of the problem. I don't see that as a problem with Shedeur at all. He's already in Cleveland working out in Browns gyms and shit. So, I'm not concerned about that. But the bravado and the arrogance and the ego, and I think that teams were just like, there's this rumor I heard that I can't confirm, but like, a coach called him out or corrected him on something and he blew up about it. And that was something that got around to the 32 teams. So they're like, well, is he coachable? Like, is this guy coachable? And it's also, it's like, well, guess what? If he's at the 5th round, you've been humbled to at least to an extent. And I hope he has been. I hope he's been humbled and he's like, you know what? I got to earn what I was saying. I got to earn the way I was acting. And like, dude, there ain't no way to earn and prove you're that dude than to be the quarterback of the Browns and be successful. Because if you can do that, millions have tried and they have all failed. So if you can be that guy, then guess what? You can have the biggest ego on the face of the planet because nobody's been able to do what you just did. He was the most accurate quarterback in the draft. He was number 2 in turnover, I believe number 2 in the country in turnover-worthy play percentage at like 1.29%, which is actually saying something because he was running for his life a lot. That's what's interesting. You talk about like, oh, he's good under pressure. And it's like, yeah, that's saying something because he was always under pressure. His pocket awareness is terrible. He thinks like he runs around like he's a better athlete than what he is, and it's like, man. But when he is in structure and he stays in there and he gets a clean pocket and he gets a clear vision, he could be surgical, man. Like he's got. I don't call his arm weak, but it's average. I know some people want to call it below average. I think it's average. I've seen him push it downfield. I've seen him underthrow a lot of that stuff. I've seen some of the outside the numbers throw just kind of flutter out there. It's not going to work as much in the NFL because some of those DBs are going to jump on some of those things. But Sam Penix over at the OBR had some great points, and I'm sure we'll get to it in later pods. Me and Sam will be doing some film breakdowns of it, where he's talking about some of his footwork not being matched with his eyes and some of his mechanics, where Sam's like, I think he's got a stronger arm than what we've seen. I think if he can clean up some of his footwork and his throwing mechanics, that he could drive the ball better. And that's really intriguing because as a 5th round pick, you get to go sit and do that shit. And you get to go watch a dude that's got a bazooka and good footwork in Joe Flacco. Like there's a guy in front of you that can lead you by example. So as far as the lottery pick goes, it's like I got the most accurate quarterback in the draft at 144. The expectation is nil. If the bullshit follows him, easy, bye. Easy. It's easy. And because of that, I gave it a B plus only because I think he's got physical limitations. He's an average athlete. He's got an average arm. But like, you couldn't find a better value pick, in my opinion, in the 5th round.
Yeah, and when you think about how we got there, and you cited the interviews, which that's came up on a few places, and we heard about it right when they happened in the OBR. We heard some things that were going on in the background and the Browns weren't a bad interview. That wasn't one of them, actually.
Right.
There were other teams that it went south, their approach. But it was just a bad approach from Jump Street with his camp, namely his dad, narrowing the teams, saying, you know what I mean? He said that on 4 different occasions that they were going to control it, and wasn't going. I think it's a terrible approach to take, especially when you're someone who's thought to be at the beginning of a draft, and the teams that you're narrowing are the teams that will be picking up there. You're not pissing off Buffalo and Kansas City. They're not even on their radar because they already have their guy. You know what I mean? So it was just a bad approach there, not throwing at the combine. And I get like not competing at the combine if you have an injury and you're not going to be able to perform your best. But when there are physical questions surrounding you, go answer those in front of everybody. I think that's the easiest way to get ahead of it. So it almost felt like he was hiding something throughout the process. And then, you start to hear about the Giants interview and, things start to snowball. And this league, the NBA is a players' league. The NFL is trying to get to that. They're not there. We saw Myles Garrett not get a trade. Like, it's just not a players' league, and it's a be who you can afford to be league. And I think the league kind of showed him like you can't afford to be that brash. You can't. Like a lot of we won't want to work with you. And it's still a front office and coach league, and and maybe that'll change someday. But we're not there yet. So I think you both touched on something. It's like taking the coaching. We're talking about a player who's been homeschooled by his dad as a football player his whole career. He hasn't had to learn outside of that sphere, outside of that bubble. So now it becomes about, can you do that? Can you take to the coaching? Because to your point, Jacob, when he's on time and on schedule, it looks easy.
Yeah.
He's able to effortlessly guide the ball down the field. But when things start to compound and he gets outside of that, and then things start to break down. And part of that's this physical limitations, but part of that too is just a lot not staying on schedule, not taking the easy stuff that's there because you're hunting a bigger play. You know what I mean? So that's the gambit, right? You got him at pick 144. Can you coach that stuff out of him? Because there's a player in there.
Yeah.
To me, the bigger question is, because they traded that first pick away, traded back and got a first next year, you're on schedule to be drafting quarterback next year. So your runway to evaluate both Gabriel and Sanders is shorter than it would be had that not happened. Had you not had an extra first rounder, you're not, but now the timeline's condensed. So it's for Sanders and Gabriel, it's imperative to really hit the ground running, and show that at minimum you're ready to be the backup right here, right now.
Yeah, you got to get out there and start on your best foot and kind of take to coaching, take to the scheme. Whenever you get a chance to get the playbook, study that damn playbook. You got to be ready because you got a year, and I saw Pete Smith over on the React. I was watching a little bit of that a little bit earlier, and he said he brought out a good point. They're going to be going again as a scout team offense. They're going to be going against a pretty good defense in practice. Yep. So they're going to be going. So if you could, they will get a decent little look at Gabriel and Shedeur because they'll be going up against the Browns defense. So that is an interesting tidbit about it. I hadn't really thought about that necessarily. Obviously I thought about, okay, they'll get a good look at him in practice, but against what? And you're like, well, actually against a pretty good defense. So
right.
If they can show you some flashes, you at least think about it. You at least throw one of them out there at the end of the year. Like, a few different things. And you've got the preseason.
Well, you got 4 quarterbacks, and that's good for camp, but we're not taking 4 quarterbacks into the regular season. So at least one has to separate themselves from the pack so that they can trade Kenny Pickett away and move forward with this. I've seen some people thinking it's going to be Flacco they move on from. I highly doubt that. I just don't think you can go to the season with Kenny Pickett and 2 rookies and convince the world you're not tanking.
Yeah, because I don't think they are. I don't think they are trying to tank. And so
no. That's. I know we're gonna talk a lot more about this, but I look at the Browns now and I'm saying you completely changed your running back room. You weren't able to address wide receiver. I understand that, but your defense should be better. Your offensive line should be healthier. We've seen Kevin Stefanski's offense just be able to salt away games if you can run the ball. And I'm expecting the Browns to be able to run the ball this year. I think they're going to be in a lot of these games. I think they're going to be in a lot of them. I don't know how they're going to go, but there is a good chance in my mind that they could exceed expectations because when you are able to take these quarterbacks later and just stock up on talent early, unlike most formulas for most teams, there's potential to turn around in a hurry. And that's, I think, what's got me so excited. I just a programming note, because I know we're getting late here. I think we're gonna start doing the Barking Browns on Sunday nights until further notice. I think that's the direction we're headed in, so we can have full I'm Ron Burgundy with us, because we love that guy. And so maybe that starts next week. Is that what we're looking at here?
Possibly, yeah.
We're gonna figure that out.
Probably.
Well, if in case you're in the bowels of wherever you're at right now, if you find Jacob Roach, I hypothesized that he was somewhere in a dark room breaking down prospects for the 2029 NFL draft.
29, yeah. And
And
dudes
there's
that are
probably
in
an
high
intervention
school.
coming, just so you know.
Right.
Dudes in high school. I should do
So-
that.
So I think that we typically do like the prospect by prospect breakdown. We're gonna have all kinds of content and fun. But I think
we're gonna have some guests to break him down with us.
Yeah.
Kyle Nash from
yeah.
he can also kind of break down the trade with the Travis Hunter fiasco, as well as he covered Dylan Gabriel at UCF.
You're right. So that'll be a fun connection to explore. We can talk all about it. But I think overall, just grand takeaway, I leave this draft feeling far more hopeful about the Browns in 2025 than I felt before it. And I just want to ask you guys where you're at as we close here.
Yeah, excitement, man. Like there's an element of excitement. I love the Judkins Sampson pairing. Like I love both of those players. Don't get me wrong, but I love that pairing for so many different reasons. Just because, you know, do you really want to try to run down Dylan Sampson after you've tried to tackle Quinshon Judkins 25 times? Because
No.
I don't know if you got the juice to do it necessarily. And you mix in either Nick Chubb if he comes back or Jerome Ford. There's some guys, some stuff in there too where you're going to get a fresh guy. That one of them's going to be a fresh guy that you're going to try to chase some explosive fresh guy at the end of in the fourth quarter, and that's awesome. And then like just what Harold Fannin can do, because he can because he's kind of a wide receiver, he goes in and out and does all that, you can put him into the slot. Casey, you talked about motioning him around, to motion him into the slot, out of the slot, put him in the backfield. Well, hell, he did all that shit at Bowling Green. They played him at
He
H-back.
scored 4 Wildcat touchdowns as a freshman at Bowling Green.
Yeah, he done all of that shit. So you've gotten, and it's really like you pointed out too, it's really just showing, hey, you are getting back to what Kevin does best, and that's really been the biggest question. And so there's excitement, man. Like we'll see. They feel like a team that could get a little frisky.
Getting back to what Kevin does, what makes me the most excited, because look, man, we're getting near the end of the day. If they don't win, people are going to start to fade away. And if you're going to go out doing what you do. Like that's all you want. And they've kind of empowered him to do that. I'm excited for this running game. And a lot of us will think back to Hunt and Chubb, but for like me, I think back to Mack and Biner. They like these just a pairing that like defenses have to account for, and it's an all-day job and it doesn't end, and I'm excited to see what that can be with this. Hopefully they can keep adding. We need something to make a move at receiver. I think we all know that. And we need a free safety. So there's some things yet to come. But I feel like you took a step. If you walk away with the draft and you tell me right now, you got 3 day one starters and 2 players that are going to have heavy roles, you got to feel good about it.
Hell yeah. Yeah. And so we're going to break it down more in depth, prospect by prospect as we go. Like I said, you will probably be able to see us Sunday nights. We'll tweet something out about that and keep you guys updated. But I think overall, this has just been a very hopeful, very exciting draft review episode of the Barking Brown Show. And with that, Nick, he's Casey, he's Jacob, or Ron Burgundy. Go Browns.
Go Browns.